This is James from Charm EHR. I have a questionnaire in Charm EHR, and I've applied a couple of widgets to this intake form. And when a patient fills out the widgets that are in this intake form, there are details that will auto-populate from the questionnaire into the patient's chart and also into the patient's encounter note. How that all got set up. So I went into my settings over here, and I'm going to back it out to my main settings of questionnaires. Here's a list of all the questionnaires that I have in Charm EHR. The questionnaire that I constructed is called Insight Psychiatry Mental Health Intake Form. If I click on this action button and I select Edit, I'm going to take a look at this form. I have the details that I've made for the first page of this form, and it has symptoms at the very bottom, and it has this part that says Chief Complaints. These are widgets. Same thing for the personal details as well. How you know that you're choosing widgets for the intake form, when you click on Add Items, you have components and widgets to choose from. When you click on Question, you'll see all of the widgets that you can choose from to apply to this intake form. If I need to get the patient's demographic information, I would choose personal details or primary contact details, both. You would get their first, their last, their date of birth, their sex or identity, their home, their work, their mobile number, their address 1 and 2. Primary contact details, you're going to get their payer, their copay, their coinsurance, the expiry date of their insurance, etc. Allergies, medications, supplements is exactly what it sounds like. They would put the allergy, they would put the medication, they would put the supplement. The allergy would be the severity and the reaction. The supplement would be the how often they take it. Same thing for medication. Now where it says Chief Complaints, Symptoms, History of Present Illness, Past, Family, Social History, and Review of Systems, these are different. When I choose the personal details, I'm not required to select a template. But when I click on Question and I choose, let's say, Symptoms, I am required to select a template. These templates are coming from my settings and templates that I have in Charm. And so if I have a SOAP note that has a section of symptoms, I'm able to select that SOAP note in this symptoms, and it'll take the symptoms that I have in that SOAP note and apply it to this intake form. And so when you put everything together, when you send this intake form to the patient to fill out from their personal health record, they could fill out the symptoms section of your SOAP note. What also is true is that you can make a symptoms template in Charm EHR, which is settings and template, and then select symptoms. And you can apply that symptoms template to this intake form, just like this. I've already done this for this intake form, and so if I scroll down, you'll see that I have symptoms. I made a symptoms template and applied it to this intake form. If I click on this action button and I select Edit, it's going to tell me exactly which template I had used, and we're going to do that so you can see which one I had chosen. The one that I applied to this template was called James Mental Symptoms. How did it get there? I have a tab that says Settings on the right. I'm going to click on that tab. This tab is related to settings and templates. I have the James Mental templates because if I write James in my search, this is the one that I've constructed and that I applied to the intake form. I'm going to open up that template by clicking on the action button and selecting Edit, just so you can see what I had constructed. I put in current symptoms, a suicide risk assessment, the answers that they give for that, along with additional questions that I need this patient to answer prior to their appointment. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is that I have an appointment scheduled with this patient, and I'm going to go into a patient's personal health record, and I'm going to fill out this intake form from their personal health record. And just to remind you, when I go into calendar over here, I'm going to go to Trent. There's the 5:30 that I have scheduled. I go to questionnaire, and I can see that no information's been filled out. So basically what I'm saying is I schedule an appointment with this Trent. I assign an intake form for this person to fill out. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the patient's personal health record, fill it out, go back into Charm EHR, start the encounter note, and reconcile the data. Okay, So I'm going to change browsers. Now we're looking at my Firefox, or excuse me, Safari, and I'm in a patient's personal health record. The scenario behind this is that I'm just going to see when my upcoming appointment is, and I'm going to fill out the intake form that's assigned to that appointment. So I'm just going to go to my appointments right over here. Scroll down. This is the 5:30 that I just scheduled with this patient. And scroll to the right just a little bit, and now you see it says questionnaire. This is the intake form I need this patient to fill out prior to our appointment, the Insight Psychiatry. I'm going to click on that intake form, and you can see how this is constructed for that patient. So this says personal details. That's a widget that I had mentioned previously. And then we also have some additional questions I want this patient to answer. These are just answers that are just going to appear on the questionnaire. If you need to copy it, you can copy it and paste it onto the encounter note or copy paste it into the patient's chart. I'm going to keep scrolling through. You can see that the next questions are, what are your problems for which you're seeking help? This is related to a chief complaint template that widget that I've added. And then what are your treatment goals? And this has to do with their symptoms. Let's fill this out. All right, so I'm going to change their blood group to B positive. I'm going to change their language back to English, if that's available for me to choose from. There we go. Let's try one more time. There you go. Awesome. All right, do you give permission ongoing? Yep, let's fill that out. Primary care physician, I don't have one, let's say. I also don't have a therapist, and I don't have a phone number to give. But what are the current problems that I have? Let's say I have anxiety. Let's say that I have depression. And what are my treatment goals? I wish to feel better. And then what symptoms am I currently experiencing? So I'm depressed, I have loss of interest, I have excessive guilt, I also have fatigue. I'm going to scroll through. Have you had any feelings? Do you want to live? You don't want to live? No. If yes, fill out the rest. And I'll say yes for this now, so I can fill out the rest, and you can see how it gets outlaid. Often do you have these thoughts? Not often. When was the last time you thought about dying? Yesterday. Has anything happened to you recently in a useful way? No. On a scale of 1 to 10, being the strongest, can you kill yourself? Let's say 4. Anything that makes it better, and let's just fill this out. So, because we have a gist of like, okay, this is how they fill it out, and let's see how it gets populated. All right, so I'm done filling out this intake form as a patient. Now I'm going to click on Submit. All right, so the intake form now is going to push over back into our Charm EHR. So I'm going to change browsers and go back to my Google Chrome, and you're going to see Charm EHR. All right, so we're back at Charm EHR. I'm going to refresh the screen, so I'm just going to click on Calendar, refresh the screen. Here we go. And then here's that 5:30 that I just scheduled with that patient that we're talking about. And if I click on Questionnaire, here's the questionnaire they had filled out along with their answers. Now, what does it look like when you're reconciling information from the questionnaire into your encounter note? So to do that, I'm going to click on Start for Encounter. We're going to use a SOAP template for this example, and I'm going to click on Create. My SOAP note's going to look a little bit different than what you're currently looking at. The reason being is that this is in beta format. It's going to be published at some point, but I wouldn't worry about this too much. Over here on the left-hand side, this pertains to the patient's chart. You can always add more details if you need to, see medication list, etc. Over here, this has to do with the last time you had seen this patient, and you can look at other dates if necessary by clicking on there and see those. Then where it says question, this is the questionnaire that this patient had filled out previously before our encounter. You can see all the answers that I had given in that personal health record. You know, what are the problems that they have? You know, what are your treatment goals? What symptoms do you have? Suicide risk assessment, etc. for these answers. Okay, so you can see that I changed my blood group to B positive. If I were to look in this area of the patient's chart, this has to do with their face sheet. I can see some of the changes I may have made in this area. I can also go to the patient's chart and I can also see, okay, what is their blood group. Okay, so I'm going to reconcile this information directly into my encounter note. So to do that, click on Reconcile. Here's all the information that's going to reconcile from the questionnaire into the patient's encounter note and chart. Now, this only has to do with the widgets that are applied to the questionnaire. Any other answers like primary care physician, therapist, etc., those are not pertaining to a widget, so they're not going to populate over. What you do is you click on Add, or just click on Add All at the top right. Here's all the answers that they had given. The next thing that you do is you click on Preview. Just previews like, hey, this is how it's going to look inside your encounter note, and then click on Save. All right, so what I need to do now is I'm going to go into the encounter note and show you how it gets outlaid. I'm going to click on this arrow pointing to the left with the 3 lines, bring up my entire encounter note, and you can here see the answers that have been given. Problems you're seeking help, anxiety, depression, symptoms that you have, suicide risk assessment, and all the answers that I had given as a patient. I hope this gives you a good idea of how this information is getting pulled from the intake form and why it got pulled from the intake form. Just to reiterate, you apply widgets to the questionnaires. The widgets that you'll use templates for or apply your SOAP note to has to do with history of present illness, chief complaint, symptoms, past family social history, and review of systems. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I'd be happy to get to a screen share with you.